Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Nodding. In this episode, we're gonna try to recreate a simple Mondrian art, basically something that's kind of made of square, and you kind of split the square into multiple parts. But we're gonna do a basic one first. There's a more advanced versions maybe in the next video. So yeah, just let's get started. So I will be using Spherechalk add-on because Spherechalk add-on has quite a neat features to be able to kind of like randomize a grid in horizontal or vertical. So normally I will be just using plain nodes, and I will be using viewer draw. I'm gonna show you what the plane created first. So by default, it's just gonna create a single plane, but you can increase the number of grid. Let's say we make it 5 by 5. So we have 16 polygon face. What you see here, you can also control the step of X and Y, and that's actually easy to understand. But you can also use random number, or you can use like a list input. Just for now, we're gonna be using list input. So 5 by 5 vertices, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 gap between the points, and we can control it by using the step here. Let's say we have 4 gaps, and we can basically control the distance of the gap. So this probably not super clear. I mean, it's already pretty clear. We have 0. Let's say we have 0.5 here. We have 2. You can see the distance changing. So 2, and then maybe 1 here, and then 4. So yeah, we can really control the plane, the distance, okay, in the X and Y. So that's really cool features actually, and that's how we can create this kind of Piet Mondrian artwork. Except that with his artwork, he actually goes inside the face and then start to do some kind of splitting. So this one is actually a little bit more complicated. So let's create a simple one for now. You can manually draw the X and the Y, so that's nothing wrong with that. But you can also use a random number. So in this case, we need random number of 4 and random number of 4 over here. So let's randomize the seed. So the random number by default is in the integer value. We want it to be floating number. We can randomize this number, and so we have the artwork. And let's save this very quickly. Simple Mondrian. And over here, instead of just viewer draw, we can use VMS Viewer. So we're gonna create an actual face, and it's up to you what you want to do with this. You can use inset, for example, inset special. We can insert this polygon just to show you. So you can create that kind of design, and then you can randomize the result. But you can also, instead of using insert special, you can use a normal solidify. Let me show you. Because normally whatever you created in Spherechalk and then you output using viewer mesh, you can easily use with a combination with Blender modifiers. For example, the wireframe. So wireframe will just create these wires. But on top of this, you can always turn off replace original, and you have some kind of windows, and you add a You can add a thickness using solidify, but solidify probably need to be added beforehand. So solidify, and then the wire. So you have some kind of thickness. If you want to add a bit of color, you can do that using Vertex Color in Spectrum. So even though we don't have any kind of UV, we can still colorize this plane randomly by using Vertex Color. So Vertex Color, we can randomize the face, and then basically these objects, just plug the objects there, and then we don't need to worry about the index. We just need to supply random color. With Mondrian, he actually simplified the color. He only have the basic red, yellow, blue, and black. So for that, you can do the same, but in my case, I'm just gonna be using random color. I guess color in, HSV, use alpha, plug in the color, and the random color can be from the hue, as usual, random number. We have 16 phase. Just type it here. Float number between 0 and 1. Plug this into the hue, and we now have Vertex Color. And now that we have Vertex Color, we can go to Cycles or EV Shader. Create new for this guy, and create attribute, and this color is SV color. Plug this into the color. Let's check if this is working. So SV colors is now colorizing our creation. With Mondrian, don't forget, he actually put a framing around it, like all these black lines. So with the black lines, because we have a wireframe modifier here, we can turn on material offset to 1 and create a second material. Just give it a color. Give it a color of black. Yeah, so we have something that's kind of resembles Mondrian. So if you want to have nicer edges here, you can also use bevel. So bevel it one time so you have this result. It's very nice. And so you have this kind of random color artwork that resembles Piet Mondrian. You can randomize the color. You can desaturate it, simplify. Oops, actually not too much. Or you maybe plug into the value and then have a color, single color. Still, it's kind of interesting that we find this one kind of appealing, even though it's less color. Oh, this one is nice. Kind of like a stained glass look. You can always use like the Voronoi or whatever in Cycles nodes itself. So that's another idea. So with the material, just mix it with the SV call, for example. So if you have Voronoi, plug in the color over there. The calculations are just a little bit slower, but you can mix the RGB very quickly. So mix RGB. But again, I have to mention this minimalizations is actually always more interesting in terms of design. You don't use all the color, you actually minimize the color, and then it actually looks better than maximizing the value. So in general, you probably want the SV call on the top, mix it with Voronoi, and maybe multiply the value or add it together. So let's try multiply. So there you go. Voronoi texture is, the Voronoi can actually go into the normal, but you need to make slight modification. Make this to 1. Okay, maybe the Voronoi just use the color, just use the distance, so you don't get the color from the Voronoi. Or you convert the RGB to grayscale. So this one actually can be for the normal. So if we use RGB to black and white, plug the color there, and this guy goes there. Okay, kind of all right. We just need to play around with the metallic, roughness, and maybe transmission. In this case, I want to show you. If I just add a little bit of transmission, we can export this out as something that looks like a glass. Oh, somehow pretty slow. File, export, USDZ, bake textures, scale to 5, save, simple Mondrian. So if you want to take this further yourself, the idea is you start with a simple cut of the face, and then you start to merge, or you start to splitting the face further, or kind of with, in his case, there's some kind of algorithm that's kind of pushing the edge slightly more complicated, but you can probably just delete some edges. Deleting edges is actually one way to make this slightly more abstract. Okay, so it's done. We should have an object. So there you go, that's Mondrian with a bit of, you can see there's a bit of transparency happening. Opacity is basic opacity. I made a bunch last night, and if you control the color a little bit more, you can have something that looks a little bit better. I have a bit of normal there. It's not perfect, but it's quite nice. Alright, so that's a quick way to make a simple Mondrian art using Blender and SketchUp nodes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.